Yes, folks, hello, welcome once again to MoDXtra Games and Collectibles. I'm Chris, this is my channel. Absolute pleasure to have you with me here today. And folks, it's Flight of Fantasy time. It's, random wishlist stuff today. I've got 10 multipack, G.I. Joe Classified Series multipacks that I'd like to see in the line. I've been rattling this one over for a while, and I thought while there's a dry spell on the reviews, I'd throw something out there. I'm not really great at staying on top of the news to do regular kind of news video posts, so why not do a Flight of Fancy, wish list? And Slice and Dice got me thinking about it, but in my opinion, G.I. Joe Classified is pretty good at multipacks. They're army builders, that let you fill out your ranks, your troop ranks, you get some Vipers, some Valkyries, whatever. Or it's sub-team, filling out the ranks of your sub-team stuff, Low Light and Spirit, Quarrel and Falcon, Roadblock and Tripwire, and Slice and Dice, of course, make sense kind of two-packs. So, yeah. I'm going to share a few that I've been thinking about and I'd like to see in the line. And I invite you to the comments down below to share a few that you might like to see. All right, well, let's get on with it then. Let me show you what I've been thinking about. And first off, folks, I've got this, what I call the Dogfight 2-pack with Wild Weasel and Ace. I've got really fond memories of the story arc Shakedown. I even dug out the Action Force comic book issue from my collection there. Well, I think it's called Shakedown. It's called Shakedown in Action Force, with Dogfight on the cover there. But a bit of a selfish agenda around this one, because in the first instance, it's a way of sneaking a Wild Weasel into my collection without having to go in on a Rattler, which I haven't got the money nor the space for. But also just because I like the idea that there's a bit of a kind of story connection. It's got a bit of a narrative around it, and it's a way of getting some pilots into your collection if you're not buying the big vehicles. Oh, I mean, God forbid if we ever get a Sky Striker. Although looking at the picture in that moment where they cross paths and salute at each other. In fact, I'll put a large picture of it up in my little box there in a minute. It looks like the Sky Striker is not much bigger than the Rattler, so maybe, who knows, down the line, fingers crossed for Sky Striker fans. But yeah, just nice little interest. Obviously Wild Weasel they've already got a mold for, but a nice way of making it an interesting two-pack for folks like me who missed out on the Rattler. Although it will be actually a little bit of a hostage pack if you have got the Rattler and you got Wild Weasel already. So yeah, definitely a very selfish agenda around this one. But yeah, just always fun. I like the idea that there's a storyline, and it's a way of getting some pilots into your collection without having to attach them to, big chunky vehicles that take up too much space. Then thinking about getting into the sort of alternative variant space, I was thinking, wouldn't it be cool to get like an Extensive Enterprises Tomax and Xamot 2-pack with the blazers and the yellow ties and the red flowers on the lapels and stuff. It's a way of bringing those characters into folks who like seeing them suited and booted, all dressed up for, Wall Street, greed is good, 80s style action in the cartoons, but who, folks who aren't interested in that can just completely ignore and just pass by and just get them in a 2-pack in the suits, not a problem, and it'll allow you to recreate scenes from the cartoons and the comic books for folks like me who like to do that. But if you're not interested and you're happy with just your core classic look Tomax and Xamot from the main line, then you can just ignore it and pass it by. But it's a fun look, and I think one that folks would be interested in seeing in the line. It is kind of a narrative part of the characters, that they are the kind of corporate face of the Cobra operations through their Extensive Enterprises activities. So it'll sort of open up another little space, another little avenue for us to enjoy and play around with our photos and dios and stuff, So, yeah, pretty straightforward one, but an Extensive Enterprises Tomax and Xamot is next on my list. Hey, folks, future editing Chris here. This next choice, to give you a little insight into how the sausage is made here at MoDXtra Games and Collectibles Towers and how long it takes me to finish a video. This next choice I put together when prepping the video before the Mercer name-only announcement came along on a fairly recent stream, although it's probably a couple of weeks ago now. So I'm going to throw it in anyway, because I think what I've got to say is relevant. But yeah, this next one, we already know there's a 2-pack with Mercer coming down the line. Spoiler alert, it's Slaughter's Renegades. Right, folks, my next choice. I've never really been shy about letting the world know about my love of G.I. Joe the movie. Regulars around these parts will know the story. It was my first experience of seeing animated G.I. Joe in the 80s. Up until then, it had been all about Action Force comic books and, the Palatoy stuff, Battle Action Force and all that. And it was branded Action Force in Toys R Us for me. It was all Action Force stuff. It was my first experience of animated G.I. Joe, so I've always got a soft spot. And that informs my next choice, because I would love to see a 3-pack of Slaughter's Renegades. I've already got a Falcon, I've already got a Sergeant Slaughter. Get me the other 3 in a single pack that I can just drop, 75 quid on, 80 quid on, and that be done. I'll have my Red Dog, I'll have my Taurus, and I'll have my Mercer in the line. I mean, is there really any set of characters in G.I. Joe more fated to be a multi-pack than these 3 put together? I don't think there is. And loads of great accessories. You can give Taurus his sword, you can give Red Dog his BT stick, and Mercer can have a pistol that he carried into the Cobra base, even though there was like a no guns rule. Just saying, it was there the whole time. But yeah, I think it would be a great 3-pack to have these 3 together. They're just recognised. You can get your Sergeant Slaughter off the shelf, get your Falcon off the shelf, and you can recreate all those great training scenes and what have you. Just lots of opportunity, and I think that they'd make a great gang together. Although I suspect history dictates that if we're going to get all the Dreadnoks individually and we're going to get people like Tomax and Xamot individually, we're probably not going to get these guys in a 3-pack. But I would love to see it. In fact, I'm going to stay on 3-packs for a little while and do another one now. I can't remember how many 3-packs are on the list. I think there's 3-packs in total. Anyway, the next one is a set of Siblings. Some of you might be familiar with the lore. Barrel Roll, Bomb Strike, and Blackout. So I've had Bomb Strike on the wish list for a while, actually. If anybody watched my wish list video early last year, I said I was eager to see more female Joes. Bomb Strike, I just love her aesthetic with the bulletproof vest and the G.I. Joe logo across the front there. And a little bit different to Scarlet and Lady J and sort of stuff, just to give it a bit more flavour in the line. She featured in a great storyline with Helix and Dawn Morena and stuff that I particularly enjoyed. But you may or may not be aware, but in the lore, Barrel Roll and Blackout are her brothers. And there's a storyline around those guys as well. Barrel Roll's got this kind of great aesthetic, the sort of light grey and white look. He's called a high altitude sniper, and so he's got this really interesting aesthetic around him. Get him a big old sniper rifle or something. But Blackout, he works for Cobra. He got court-martialed, if I remember rightly, for some reason. I can't remember the precise reason why. And during his court-martial, or just after his court-martial, he gets captured by Cobra, and Cobra Commander says, "Why don't you come over to my side?" And he does. He's like, "Yeah, fuck you, G.I. Joe, court-martialing me," and goes over to Cobra. So you got these 3 siblings, all like good enough, top-quality military personnel to get into G.I. Joe, and one of them, Blackout, who was like just a standard green shirt guy to begin with, but goes over to the other side. So it's just an interesting pack, because you can have 2 good guys and a villain in there. It'll get me my Bomb Strike off my wish list into the collection. But they're just obscure enough, I think, and lesser known enough that, again, if you want to ignore the multi-pack and set it to one side because you're not really into the Devil's Due stuff, you weren't into that later comic book line, you can just pass it by, which I think works perfectly. But yeah, like, I don't know what you call it, like the traitorous, I don't know, siblings with traitorous brother or something. I don't know. Anyway, but yeah, I like the storyline. The pack's got a narrative around it that you could lean into with some of the accessories. I mean, I don't know how you would do that, but obviously the aesthetic of Blackout with his, he'll have a Cobra logo somewhere. But the aesthetic of Blackout will do that. But yeah, I just think it's a fun idea. I like multi-packs that have a narrative, that have a storyline that makes sense. So why not throw some siblings together? There is another 3-pack on the list. Just check my notes before I carried on recording. And do you know what my G.I. Joe collection is? My G.I. Joe Classified collection is missing. It's missing bright yellow. And to solve that problem, I think we need a Ninja Force 3-pack. We've already got, obviously, Snake Eyes. We've already got Arctic Storm Shadow, who was kind of wearing that uniform around G.I. Joe time, or maybe the version 2 when he was a good guy. We've already got a Jinx, for example. We've already got a Nunchuck, but we haven't got the bright yellow, bright blue, bright green crowd that is Tjabang, I think I'm pronouncing that correctly, Dojo, and Scarlet in her Night Force gear. In fact, there's a really excellent, like super 90s looking cover of Scarlet with Cobra Commander, like around in 150, 160-ish issue number. Maybe I'll throw it up on the screen in my little prepared graphics. I've not done the graphics yet, can you tell? It's just so 90s look and feel. But in any case, yeah, let's get some really bright colours on the G.I. Joe side of the shelf. Regulars around these parts know that I talk a lot about the colour palette of the display and the colour variety in the display, and what could be more colour variety than the Ninja Force put together. Get these three together with the blues, the yellows, the whites, the greens, chuck your Jinx in there, red, you know, get your Storm Shadow in there, white. It's just come together. It'd be such a random assault on the eyes in terms of the colour palette. I would love it. And as you guys well know, I love the more balmy, more random stuff in the line. So a Ninja Force 3-pack, and it leans into what Classified does with their multi-packs. It helps fill out a subline, a kind of corner space of the G.I. Joe lore. But if you're not interested in it, you can just pass on by, you know. But if you are into it and you want to fill out your sub-teams, then you can do, and you can do so with a multi-pack of this nature, just the same way as you might fill out your Tiger Force with a Tripwire and Roadblock, or fill out your Night Force with a Low Light and Spirit, or what's the one that's on the way? Quick Kick and who is it? I've forgotten. I've had a total brain fart live on camera. Did you see that, folks? But anyway, you get the idea. So I love the balmy colours. I love the brighter, more lively stuff. The ninja part of the G.I. Joe lore is just really exciting. It'll go well with your Slice and Dice as well. They definitely faced off against each other. Get your Night Creepers out. Get your Slice and Dice out. Get these guys out with your Jinx and Nunchuck, and you're away. You know, you've got an afternoon's man-child play on the living room carpet. And what more could you want? All right, folks, my next one is sticking to the theme of like storyline related multi-packs, but I'm not fully sure about this one. I'm concerned that I may have created one of the aforementioned kind of wallet hostage packs that I was referencing earlier. But I've kept it in the list anyway, and then you can have a go at me in the comments. I've ummed and ahed. I procrastinated about adding this one, but the next on the list is Mainframe and Zarana. But to be clear, not Zarana in her pink leather jacket and blue jeans. No, Zarana in a military uniform, from being undercover in disguise in the episode Computer Complications, where there's a romance storyline between Mainframe and Zarana. Now, the reason I ummed and ahed over it is because we haven't got Mainframe yet, and I want Mainframe. I'd love to have a Mainframe. Again, fond memories of Mainframe. He appears in the movie, he appears in the cartoon, he's in a couple of Action Force storylines. So he's a character I'm fond on, and so I'd like just a good, solid Mainframe. I tell you what else, I really like Mainframe as a character in the IDW continuity as well, who's got a very different kind of aesthetic, and but has an important kind of narrative. A couple of narrative arcs in that. Anyway, I'm in the weeds. Get back. So I don't know about this one, but I suppose I'm just like really trying to hammer home this idea of like a storyline multi-packs that make sense because they're connected in a storyline kind of way. And I think the fact that Mainframe and Zarana had a little bit of a kind of romancy thing going on is fun. It's a bit wacky. It's very 80s G.I. Joe cartoon, and I think the idea of getting a military uniform female book on the go that you can pop the head off and then get your Scarlet on it, or your Lady J or whatever, would be a fun idea. In fact, another one on the list is all about head swapping and getting the book together. I'll come to that. So yeah, I don't know. Let me know. I think we'd probably prefer just a Mainframe on his own, wouldn't we? But yeah, I just think it's fun. I just think it's fun to that little romance in the cartoon. So there you go. Okay, the next one on my list, I sort of discussed this in the comments with someone a little while back. I must apologise, lovely MoDXtra Games and Collectibles viewing community member. I've forgotten who you are specifically who was asking about this. But of course, I have a love of the old classic Palitoy Action Force, UK based. I was really excited to see Quarrel turn up with a Z-Force logo on her arm, and so I'd like a multi-pack that could bring me a couple more Z-Force members, and the two I've picked specifically are Skipper and Sapper, or Skip and Sapper. So these were classic Action Force figures. I had one of each of these when I was a kid, in the old Palatoy 3.75, 5 points of articulation situation. So I've got really fond memories of these characters. They had their storyline expanded in the Battle Action Force comic books as well, and I remember reading them fondly when I was a kid with my dad on the living room sofa. There's a few more. There's what's his name, Minesweeper and Tracker. Some of them are very, very similar to G.I. Joe characters. So the mechanic guy, whose name escapes me right now, has got a bit of a gung-ho vibe about him. And there was and Breaker was basically Breaker, and there was a guy called Wheels, who was actually more like Clutch, So, but these two, just good, classic kind of UK SAS style characters. Skip's got the red beret, which, there's already a red beret in the line. They probably wouldn't be all that exciting characters, really. They'd just be good standard toy soldier type stuff to have in the collection, but a nice multi-pack, a nice Z-Force multi-pack. You give me Quarrel, give me a couple more Z-Force members, and I'd like to see Skip and Sapper just because, because Adam was a kid, and as many of us do, we collect around the nostalgia from back in the day. So yeah, let's see a little bit more Action Forcey stuff, classic Action Forcey stuff, and let's get some Z-Force in the line, and then we can have some Q-Force in the line. And then we could have some Space Force in the line. Wouldn't that be amazing? Okay, my next choice is leaning into my love of the barmy, my love of the random. This one goes out to my man Bobby Dubs. We've spoken about this character before, Bobby, and I'm right there with you. I'd love to see a Headman and a Gristle in the line. The weird drug dealer storyline of that episode in the DIC series, but of course they appeared in the Devil's Due comic book continuity as well. So yeah, bright yellow suited kind of prohibition gangster style guy. And Gristle, actually, I've been searching for the pictures to make my graphics up with. I like the Gristle meathead look more from the cartoon. In the Devil's Due comic book, he had this kind of gimp leather outfit type thing. But whatever, I'll take it. It'll be fun. Just leaning into that weird, balmy drug dealer thing that they did with G.I. Joe back in the day, and get me a Headman. Although there is also a kind of pinstripe suit version of Headman knocking around, isn't there? So I'd be happy with that too. But I want the bright yellow one. Yeah, the absolutely crazy bright yellow one with the mask over his eyes and stuff. Pretty straightforward. Just like exploring those weirder corners of the G.I. Joe universe with some crazy drug dealer types. Why not? All right, then, circling back round to my love of G.I. Joe, the movie, although in subsequent years I've engaged more with the cartoon, and I think this would be applicable just generally for the collection. What I'd like to see is a multi-pack with, like, cold weather gear. So there's the scene in the Himalayas in the movie where they're all in the cold weather gear, with the, the energy transmitter, Dubry What's It. And then Cobra turns up to come and capture it and all that. And they're all in the cold weather gear. But then throughout the cartoon and in the comic books, when I think like early doors in the comic books, you had that whole Quinn storyline with Snake Eyes and Scarlet and Stalker. And someone else was with him. Who else was with him? Anyway, they were all in like Arctic cold weather gear and stuff. And I'd like to. What I'd love to see them do is like a 3-pack with 2 male bodies and 1 female body, with like a Parker jacket, with fur-lined Parker jacket. The Scarlet and Lady J in the movie were both kind of wearing brown ones with fur collars, sheepskin collars on them. And then there was like a bluey grey kind of colour scheme for some of the fellas and like a browny green one. So just throw together like a cold weather gear, but not like a full snow job kind of setup. They can still have their standard kind of army pants like they did in the cartoon. They just threw the big Parker over the top. So like a standard set of, whatever legs, just reuse whatever legs, some standard G.I. Joe legs. Get a big grey Parker with a fur collar, get a big browny greeny Parker with a fur collar, then get a Ladybug with a brown one, with a couple of generic heads, put them out as whatever, like 60th anniversary style, like the Marine Sniper and the infantryman and all that kind of stuff. So just give them a couple of generic heads, but set it up in a way that you could do some head swapping. So if I wanted, a cold weather gear Snake Eyes, get me Snake Eyes head, pop it off, put it on the grey one. Maybe throw some accessories, some like bandoliers in. Like in the movie Quick Kick, really randomly, he's got his massive parka on, but then he's still got his throwing knife, throwing star belt across the top and stuff. And a few of them have got their dial tones still got his big thing while him and Mainframe are working on the energy transmitter and all that. So I don't know how it'd work. Throw some like over the top hoopy kind of bandolier style accessories or something. I don't know, but I'd just like to see like a 3-pack with some sort of generic-y, 2 generic male bodies and 1 generic-y kind of female body. Throw some random like whatever heads in, like they've done with the Halo jumper and stuff, but set it up in a way that you could head swap in and out and recreate those scenes from the cartoon and specifically the movie, but also from the comic books where they're in cold weather gear, you know? And even though I'm saying cold weather gear because I've got that soft spot for the film, you could do this with all sorts of different kind of terrains and climates, couldn't you? You know, you could do all sorts of stuff. So something to think about. There you go, Hasbro. You can have that one for free. No commission required. And finally, if you've been keeping count, this is the 10th one now, folks. And finally, we've got Cold Slither coming down the pipeline, so we really ought to have Satin's band. You know what I mean? So this is from Chaos in the Sea of Lost Souls, Snake Eyes and Shipwreck, Timber and Polly disguise themselves as members of Satin's band to escape where he was. They were trying to escape from Springfield, probably, to get out of town. And you got, Snake Eyes Boy Georging it up with a dress on and stuff, and Shipwreck with his wide-shouldered 80s blazer, playing the saxophone, because there's always a saxophone in the 80s. Oh, you've got to have a saxophone in your band in the 80s. And in the movies as well. There's like a random scene that always lives with me so vividly in my memory from one of the police academies where they go for a beach party. And what's the name of the dude who's gun obsessed? Oh, God, I can't remember his name. The guy with the shotgun and the massive Dirty Harry revolver, and he's playing saxophone around this fire they're burning on the beach. There's always a saxophone hanging around in 80s movies and 80s bands. Anyway, shit, I'm in the weeds again. What was I talking about? Oh yeah, Satin's band. So if we're getting Cold Slither, SDCC 2026, keep an eye out. We'll have Satin's band. We'll have a Timber with a big purple hat on. We'll have Shipwreck in a blonde wig and a checked wide-shouldered jacket with a saxophone accessory. And I'm all for it, you know? So there you go, folks. 10 multi-packs that I'd like to see in the G.I. Joe Classified series line. Well, kind of, you know, there's a few of them I'm procrastinating about, but I put them on the list anyway. I think the Mainframe and Zarana one was a bit of a misstep. But anyway, let me know in the comments down below, is there some multi-pack ideas that you've been thinking about that you'd like to see in the line? How do you feel about my suggestions? Am I way off the mark? Am I a madman to suggest these, or have I got some good ideas? Should Hasbro be hiring me as an ideas man, just sending me a commission? Let me know in the comments down below, but otherwise, filling the time with a silly bit of fun. Hopefully I can do some more videos like this in the meantime until something drops that I can review. So yeah, thanks for coming and hanging out. I hope you had a good time. Please do come back and hang out for another video soon if you're not already subscribed to all the YouTubey stuff. But yeah, that's it. Just have yourselves a great day. Have yourselves a great week, and I'll see you next time, folks. All right, ta-ra now.